Hi everybody, Starr here. It's been a while since I've made a video for you guys. I've been really busy out in LA working on some future projects that are super exciting, but it is now late September and this is the peak of the chili harvest from New Mexico. And there's a small town in south central New Mexico called Hatch that is famous worldwide for growing the most delicious chilies. They're a long green chili that's actually related to the Anaheim chili. But the soil conditions and the climate in Hatch, New Mexico are perfect for growing delicious chilies with lots of flavor, a moderate amount of heat, though you can get some of them that are pretty darn hot. And about this time of year they start showing up in grocery stores all over the American Southwest. So, what I've done for my green chili stew is last night I fire roasted on my grill about 2.5 to 3 pounds of Hatch green chilies till they were black. Then I pulled off the skins after they had cooled down, pulled out the seeds, chopped them up, and they're in my fridge. Also, as soon as I was finished roasting my chilies, I threw several ears of corn onto the grill and fire roasted those. Then I took the kernels off and reserved the kernels and the cobs, and they're also in the fridge. So that's the prep work for green chili stew. Now today we're going to be using a pressure cooker for the green chili stew. And I catch a lot of flack for using my pressure cooker all the time, but I'm going to beat up those people that don't like me using the pressure cooker. Some people say it's a cheating method. I think it's a superb method for cooking. I use my pressure cooker all the time. It's efficient, it cooks in less time, it retains more flavor and vitamins and minerals that are natural in your fruits, vegetables, and meats. It's just a wonderful technique to use, wonderful tool. So we're using the pressure cooker today. And I'm not going to dumb down this recipe for you to use in a pot because I want you to go out and buy a pressure cooker because they are amazing. I am cooking with my brand new Fagor Duo pressure cooker. I was introduced to this pressure cooker on the set of MasterChef and now I can't live without it. It's the best pressure cooker I have ever used. But there are cheaper models of pressure cookers available. You can get one for about 30 bucks. But a pressure cooker will change your life in the kitchen. Go get one. Alright, in this bowl I have 4 pounds of pork shoulder or pork butt that's been cubed into 1.5 inch cubes. And to that I'm going to add, about a tablespoon or so of kosher salt and kind of toss that around to evenly coat the meat with salt. Now once that's done, I have half of a cup of masa, which is basically corn flour that's been seasoned with chili powder, cumin, powdered garlic, and powdered onion, and I'm going to add that to my pork. Basically what we're doing is flouring these before we cook them, but we're flouring them with masa. It's going to give it a really good, authentic, corny kind of a southwestern flavor. Okay, so once your pork is fairly well covered in the masa, we're going to add some canola oil directly to our pressure cooker. And we're going to start cooking this pork. Now, depending on the size of your pressure cooker, you're probably going to have to cook this pork in several batches. You're wanting it to brown, so you do not want to crowd the pan. High temperature here. And our only goal right now is to get a crust or a nice sear on the outside of that pork. So once you've got it distributed on the bottom of the pan, let it sit there and develop its crust before you start stirring. Well, that is looking and smelling amazing. It is almost ready to come out of the pan. So I'm finished cooking my pork. I did it in 4 batches. We've got a nice, beautiful crust. The pressure cooker is still screaming hot. We've got some beautiful fond on the bottom of it, so I'm going to add a half a stick of butter and the remainder of the seasoned masa from dusting the pork cubes. And basically what we're doing right now is we're going to make a roux with butter and masa. Once the roux begins to turn a golden color and smells real nice and fragrant, we're just going to pull it off on top of our pork here for now. And then into the pot we're going to add carrots, onions, and celery along with a little bit of canola oil. Now the moisture from these vegetables is going to deglaze the bottom of that pan. We want to use as high a heat as we can We're going to saute just until the onions start to turn translucent. Now when the garlic is nice and fragrant, we're going to go ahead and add 2 cups of chicken stock. One of the wonderful things about pressure cookers is that you can make a chicken stock start to finish in 30 minutes and it's delicious. So I love that. So once our stock goes in, then we scrape up all those brown bits from the bottom of the pan. And then to this, we're going to add 1 cup of dried pinto beans that have just been rinsed. Now, I catch flack all the time for putting beans in any kind of chili, but you know what? Tough titty. I like beans in my chili. I think they're delicious. Now we're going to return our pork and our masa roux to the stock. Get that good and stirred up. And we're also going to add 2 or 3 smoked pork ham hocks. It's going to add some nice smoky flavor to our green chili stew. Now we're going to cover this, bring it up to a simmer, then we're going to lock it down and bring our pressure cooker up to 15 pounds per square inch, which is the high setting on your pressure cooker if you have a multiple variable pressure cooker. Most do have an 8-pound pressure setting and a 15-pound per square inch pressure setting. But if you don't, then you just have one high setting, that's 15 psi. Once we get that up to temperature, we are going to process or cook this for 40 minutes. And during that time, all the flavor is going to extract out of those hocks. We're going to get that wonderful tender pork cook going on in there. And then after that, we're going to do a second stage cook with our more delicate vegetables that tend to fall apart, like the green chilies and the tomatoes and the potatoes. And that's going to bring our green chili stew together within the next 1 hour. Okay, so I've got a good simmer going on here. So now I'm going to seal my pressure cooker. I want to make sure that there's no scum or food debris around the edge. Seat the lid, lock it in. With this particular pressure cooker model, there's an extra lock there, and I have the dial set to the highest temperature. Now, when this tiny little yellow dot rises up, that's when we've achieved our full 15 psi, and that's when the cooking time begins, 40 minutes. And now you can see my little white dot has risen, so we are at full pressure now, and cooking time begins. Another one of the things that I absolutely love about these Fagor pressure cookers is that you don't hear any loud steam hissing out that's making your kitchen all damp and noisy. It cooks at almost with perfect silence unless there's a buildup of too much pressure, in which case it'll start coming out. But this is just an amazing thing as far as pressure cookers goes for me, because I've always used the old-fashioned pressure cookers that have the little weight that just spins on the top and goes, which is really loud and annoying and messy. But these pressure cookers from Fagor are so quiet, and you can turn your temperature all the way down to low for the entire duration of the cooking period, and it doesn't heat up your kitchen. It's wonderful. Alright, it's been 40 minutes, so what we need to do right now is release the pressure on our pressure cooker. You can do this one of 2 ways. If your pressure cooker has an automatic release valve like mine does, you can just turn it to release the pressure. If not, set the entire pressure cooker in your sink and run a little bit of cold water over the side of it until the pressure drops and you're able to open the lid. Alright, so it took about a minute for my steam to vent. And if you do have the venting feature, use that because the temperature doesn't drop as much in your pot and it's going to come back up to temperature really quickly. Okay, so I've got this beautiful, delicious stew in here, and the first thing that I'm going to do is get out the ham hocks so that we can make room for the rest of the stuff that we're about to put into the stew. If you've got a giant pressure cooker, you can actually leave these in for the second round of cooking if you want to. And there's the other one. Perfect. Oh, this smells so good. And believe it or not, those dried beans that we didn't even pre-soak are perfectly cooked at this point. Okay, now we're putting in our other vegetables, and we've got about 6 potatoes and 6 tomatoes here that I'm going to add. And I'm also going to add 2 pounds of Hatch green chilies that I already told you I fire roasted, peeled, and seeded. Now you can buy Hatch chilies year-round on the internet that have already been peeled and seeded for you, and that's really, really convenient. It's just they're nice and cheap when they're fresh, and I like doing everything myself. And then again, about 4 corn cobs worth of roasted corn. And if you have the corn cobs left over, toss the cobs in here as well, because they also contribute a lot of delicious flavor. I had my cobs, but my dog, I discovered last night, loves corn cobs too. So he got into the corn cobs, so I don't have any left. Okay, so now that I've got all my vegetables in here, I'm going to bring this back up to temperature and process it for 8 more minutes. And after that, we correct the seasonings, add some acid, add a little bit of cilantro, and then we're done. So after 8 minutes at 15 psi, or if like me, your pressure cooker is really too full to safely use at full pressure, you can just simmer it for 30 minutes instead of pressure cooking it for 8 to get those potatoes tender. Once that's done, you want to do a final taste to correct for seasonings. And in this case, I'm going to add about another tablespoon of kosher salt. Now we're going to add acid at this point. We don't add it beforehand because it interferes with the beans cooking all the way through. Anywhere from a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of apple cider vinegar. You might even use more if you really like that tanginess. You can also use lime juice. And then we're going to finish with a nice big bunch or 2 of chopped fresh cilantro. I'm going to get that stirred in. Now, the thickness of your soup will largely depend on, well, who knows what it'll depend on. It's going to vary based on the batch, but if you need to thicken it up, if it's too soupy and not stewy enough, you're just going to add some masa to the soup, directly into the soup, about a tablespoonful at a time until it reaches the thickness that you'd like. However, I am going to wait to thicken my stew until I serve it. I actually like to make my green chili stew the day before I serve it. And while the stew is still hot, I'm going to put the lid to the pressure cooker back on. That's going to prevent any bacteria from entering it. And then I'm just going to let it sit basically for 24 hours to allow all those flavors to really meld through there. It's going to be incredible. So, that's green chili stew. Not the simplest thing in the world, but your pressure cooker makes it a lot easier and faster to make. Otherwise, it will be a day-long affair. You will rarely eat anything this good in your entire life. It's a seasonal thing. I only make it during the fall when the fresh chilies are available in my store, and this is going to be a knockout dinner party tomorrow night. So, if this is your first time looking at me use the pressure cooker, don't be afraid. They do not explode anymore like your great-grandmother had horror stories about her pressure cooker exploding and throwing stuff all over the kitchen. They don't do that anymore. Pressure cookers are safe. They're easy to use, they're fast, they're super efficient, your food will come out healthier, you will use less energy every time you cook, your kitchen won't get all hot and gross. So there's no reason to be afraid of the pressure cooker. Buy yourself a pressure cooker, make yourself some green chili stew, it's as simple as that. For the full recipe, hit my website, benstarr.com. Happy fall to everybody, hope to see you again soon. Thanks and have a great day.